Hey everyone! If you've made it this far, I want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Let's see how far our story travels. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell, because tomorrow's story is one you won't want to miss. It's shocking, emotional, and might just change the way you see family forever. Stay tuned, and I'll see you in the next one. The day I realized my parents never loved me, only my money. From the moment I turned 18, I took on responsibilities that no teenager should have to bear. I worked long hours, sometimes juggling multiple jobs just to make ends meet. But not just for myself, for my parents and my younger sister, Madison. For the next 5 years, I paid their rent, utilities, groceries, and even car insurance. Every month, without fail, I made sure they had everything they needed, thinking that someday, they might appreciate the sacrifices I was making. But appreciation never came. Only entitlement. My dad, Mark, claimed he had chronic back pain that made it impossible for him to work. My mom, Linda, insisted she was too old for a job, even though she was only 54. And then there was Madison, 28, my younger sister and the undeniable golden child. She never had to lift a finger. She crashed her car? No problem, Mom and Dad defended her. Maxed out her credit cards? It wasn't her fault. Dropped out of school? She was just finding herself. Meanwhile, I was the one who had to figure everything out. At first, my parents would ask for small things. A bill here, a little help there. But soon, it became expected. They stopped asking and just assumed I would handle it. And if I ever hesitated, my mom would hit me with the same guilt trip. Family helps family, Ethan. Whenever I questioned it, they brushed it off. You're doing so well, sweetheart, Mom would say. It's not like you can't afford it. And for years, I let it slide. I told myself they needed the help. I convinced myself that I was doing the right thing. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. No matter how much I gave, it was never enough. No matter how much I sacrificed, Madison always came first. She had the luxury of making mistakes, of failing, of being taken care of, while I was just the backup plan. The financial safety net. The one who never got to say no. And the worst part? I let it happen. Until I couldn't anymore. 4-0. For years, I convinced myself that this was just how family worked. That my role was to provide, and their role was to take. I buried my resentment, swallowed my frustration, and told myself that one day, they would appreciate everything I had done for them. But that day never came. Things only got worse after I got married. Jessica, my wife, never said much about the way my parents treated me, but I could tell she saw what I refused to acknowledge. She watched as I sent money every month, covered every unexpected expense, and let them walk all over me. She watched as I put my own needs aside, time and time again, just to make sure they were comfortable. Then we had our daughter, Ava. And I thought, maybe this would change things. Maybe now that they were grandparents, they'd finally realize how much I had sacrificed for them. Maybe now they'd want to be involved in my life for real, not just for what I could give them. But nothing changed. If anything, it got worse. My parents barely made an effort to see Ava. They'd cancel visits last minute because Madison needed something. My dad stopped coming altogether. And every time I asked why they never made time for their granddaughter, my mom had some excuse. "Oh, sweetheart, you know how busy we are." Busy doing what? They didn't work. They didn't have any responsibilities. The truth was simple, they just didn't care enough to show up. Then came the moment that shattered everything. Jessica had a last-minute business trip, and I had an important work event. We just needed one night of help, just one night of babysitting so we could handle our careers. I called my mom, expecting at least a little consideration after 5 years of paying their bills. She laughed. "Oh, Ethan, we're not your servants," she said, like I had asked for something ridiculous. "We raised our kids already. It's not our job to take care of yours." I remember staring at the wall after she hung up, feeling like a fool. 5 years. 5 years of doing everything for them. And the one time I needed something, just a single favor, they dismissed me like I was nothing. I wish I could say that was the end of it. But it got worse. A lot worse. I sat there, phone still in my hand, replaying the conversation in my head. Maybe I misheard her. Maybe she didn't mean it like that. But deep down, I knew better. I had spent 5 years taking care of them, making sure they never had to struggle. And the one time I asked for something in return, they laughed in my face. At first, I tried to brush it off. Maybe they really didn't see it as a big deal. But the more I thought about it, the angrier I got. If I didn't matter enough for them to babysit their own granddaughter for a few hours, then what exactly was I to them? That question burned in my mind until I needed to hear the answer directly. So I grabbed my keys, got in my car, and drove straight to their house. The drive was short, but my thoughts raced the entire way. I wasn't even sure what I was going to say. I wasn't the type to yell or cause a scene, but something inside me had snapped. Years of resentment, exhaustion, and being used had built up like a pressure cooker, and now, the lid was about to blow. When I pulled into their driveway, my hands were shaking. I knocked on the door, no answer. I knocked again, harder this time. Then, I heard voices inside. The door finally swung open, and my dad stood there, looking surprised to see me. "Ethan," he said, like I was some stranger showing up unannounced. I didn't waste time with small talk. I pushed past him into the house, my heart pounding. "I just want to make sure I heard Mom correctly," I said, my voice tight. "You guys can't babysit Ava for one night because you're not my servants?" My mom was sitting on the couch, arms crossed, looking annoyed, not guilty. "Ethan, why are you making such a big deal out of this?" she sighed. Before I could respond, I heard something, a little voice, a giggle. My stomach dropped. I turned toward the hallway, and that's when I saw them. Madison's kids. My parents weren't too busy. They weren't unavailable. They were babysitting Madison's kids. My mom's face went pale as she saw my expression change. She scrambled for an excuse. "Ethan, honey, this is different." "Different?" My voice was eerily calm. "Explain to me how this is different." Silence. Then my dad, ever the spineless peacekeeper, sighed and rubbed his temples. "Your sister had a headache. She just needed a little rest." I stared at him in disbelief. "A headache?" I repeated. "So you drop everything to help her, but when I, the one who's been paying your bills for years, ask for one favor, suddenly, you're not my servants?" My mom rolled her eyes. "Ethan, you're being dramatic." And that's when I saw the truth, clearer than ever. I had spent my entire life earning love and respect from people who never intended to give it to me. I wasn't their son. I was their wallet. And I was done. I exhaled slowly, my hands clenched at my sides. The room was dead silent. My parents sat there, staring at me like I was the one being unreasonable. Madison stood in the hallway, rubbing her eyes like I had just ruined her nap. Then, she smirked. "Oh my God, Ethan. Are you seriously throwing a tantrum over this?" she scoffed. I turned to her, my jaw tight. "A tantrum? You think that's what this is?" She folded her arms. "You act like paying a few bills makes you a saint. Maybe if you weren't so uptight, Mom and Dad wouldn't have to pick favorites." Something inside me snapped. For 5 years, I had drained myself financially, emotionally, giving up vacations, new clothes, even my own peace of mind, just to keep them afloat. And now, standing in this living room, watching them babysit Madison's kids after laughing in my face, I finally saw the truth. I was never their priority. I was just useful. I nodded, more to myself than to them. "All right. I get it now." Then I turned on my heel and walked straight out the door. I didn't slam it. I didn't yell. I didn't give them another second of my time. But as soon as I got into my car, my phone started buzzing. First my mom. Then my dad. Then Madison. I didn't answer. Let them wonder. Let them stew. I wasn't going to waste another second being manipulated. By the time I got home, Jessica was already back, sitting on the couch with our daughter, Ava, asleep in her arms. She looked up when I walked in and immediately knew something was wrong. "What happened?" she asked softly. I sank onto the couch, running a hand through my hair. They were babysitting Madison's kids. Jessica stiffened. "You're kidding." I shook my head. "Nope." She had a headache, so of course, they dropped everything for her. But when I asked for one damn night, I got laughed at. Jessica let out a sharp breath, shaking her head. "Ethan, I know this hurts, but maybe it's a good thing. Now you know for sure." She was right. I did know for sure. And now that I saw things clearly, I wasn't about to keep playing my role as their personal ATM. The next morning, I woke up with a new resolve. I grabbed my phone, called my bank, and canceled every single payment. The rent, the utilities, even their damn car insurance, it all ended today. Then, I sent my parents one final text. You're on your own now. Figure it out. I didn't explain. I didn't argue. I just hit send. And then I blocked their numbers. Within an hour, the chaos began. I barely finished my morning coffee before the storm hit. It started with my email, a message from my mom, subject line, "Are you serious?" Then, my work phone rang. Then Jessica's phone. Even though I had blocked them, they were persistent. I sighed, opening the email. "Ethan, I don't know what's gotten into you, but this is ridiculous. Family supports each other. You can't just cut us off like this. We have bills to pay, your father's health isn't great, and Madison is struggling. I can't believe you'd be this selfish after everything we've done for you." I scoffed. Everything they've done for me? What, birthing me? That was about where their generosity ended. Before I could even process that, Jessica's phone buzzed again. She glanced at the screen and grimaced. "It's Madison." I rolled my eyes. Let it go to voicemail. But then a text popped up. Jessica held up her phone so I could see. "Madison, wow, you're actually serious. You're screwing over Mom and Dad just because you didn't get your way for one night? Grow up, Ethan." My jaw clenched. Of course, Madison would twist it. Of course, she'd make me the villain. I stood up, pacing the kitchen. You know what? Let them panic. Let them scream. I don't care anymore. Jessica gave me a proud little smile. Good. They don't deserve another second of your energy. And for the first time in years, I felt free. But the drama wasn't over yet. 3 days later, I heard a knock at my front door. When I looked through the peephole, I almost laughed. It was my parents. And they were crying. I stared through the peephole for a long moment, my stomach twisting. A part of me almost felt bad. Almost. Then I remembered every bill I covered. Every sacrifice I made. Every time they chose Madison over me. I took a deep breath, unlocked the door, and swung it open. The second my mom saw me, she launched into it. "Ethan, thank God. We've been trying to reach you." I folded my arms. "Yeah, I noticed." My dad sighed, stepping forward. "Son, we need to talk." "No, you need to talk," I shot back. "I already said everything I needed to." My mom clutched her chest like I had just stabbed her. "How can you be so heartless? We're family." I let out a sharp, humorless laugh. "Oh, now we're family? That's funny, because when I needed you, when I needed one night, just one, you laughed in my face. But when Madison has a headache, you drop everything for her." My mom's face twisted. "That's not fair." I stepped closer. What's not fair is me paying your bills for 5 years while Madison did absolutely nothing. What's not fair is bending over backwards for you, only to be treated like an afterthought while she gets to be the golden child. My dad sighed. Ethan, come on. We appreciate everything you do for us. I scoffed. No. You appreciate my money. Big difference. Silence. Finally, my mom sniffled. We didn't think you'd actually go through with it. Oh, I know, I said bitterly. Because I was always the responsible one. The one you could guilt into taking care of you. Well, not anymore. Her sadness turned to anger. Do you have any idea what you're doing to this family? We're struggling, Ethan. We can't keep our heads above water, and instead of helping your own flesh and blood, you're throwing a tantrum over babysitting? I felt a dangerous calm settle over me. No, I said. I'm finally standing up for myself. She scoffed. You're cutting us off over nothing. I exhaled slowly, my voice deadly quiet. Nothing? 5 years of draining me financially and emotionally, and the one time I needed something, you called me selfish. And now that I've stopped being your ATM, suddenly you're crying on my doorstep. Silence. Then, right on cue, my mom flipped the script, like she always did. Fine, she spat bitterly. If this is how you want it, then fine. But don't come crawling back when you realize how much you need us. I laughed. Need you? For what? Emotional abuse? Guilt trips? Bills I didn't sign up for? Yeah, I'll pass. My dad rubbed his face. Come on, Ethan, let's not burn bridges here. I smirked, stepping back. Then maybe you should go ask Madison for help. Oh, wait, she's never helped, has she? Silence. They both knew I was right. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. I'm done. I mean it this time. No more money. No more favors. You figure your own lives out, just like I had to. My mom opened her mouth to argue, but I was already stepping back inside. And without another word, I shut the door in their faces. I stood there, breathing hard, listening to their muffled voices. They were still talking, still trying to argue. But I didn't care. Finally, their footsteps retreated. I peeked through the window and saw them arguing with each other before they got in their car and drove away. And as I stood there, the weight of the last 5 years lifted. For the first time in my life, I had set a real boundary. And it felt incredible. Wow, what a journey! Ethan spent 5 years sacrificing for his family, only to realize he was nothing more than their personal ATM. When he finally stood up for himself, the backlash was immediate. But was he wrong? What do you think? Do you believe family should always help each other, no matter what? Or was Ethan right to cut them off after years of being used? Have you ever experienced favoritism or toxic family dynamics like this? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's talk about it. Your opinion matters, and I'd love to hear what you think.